Greetings and welcome back to the Old Ways Rising Farm YouTube channel. This is the introductory video for a skill building series where we're going to look at carving duck decoys. This is, I think, a really good project to do as even a beginning carver or somebody who's carved in wood and wants to move toward other woodworking skills, because it's something that you can do, that you can make a bunch of one thing, and even the imperfect ones have a use. So if you're carving a flock of duck decoys for hunting purposes, for yourself or for a gift, ducks are not that smart. You do not need to have perfect decoys. And anything you make is within the realm of some historic decoy. Go look around at primitive decoys and you will see basically 2x4s with some green paint on the head, right? So you cannot, if you put honest effort into this project, you will come up with something that is within the historic context of functional decoys, and two, better than some of them, right? If you put even a modicum of effort into this, you will make a decoy better than a lot of the historic decoys out there, okay? So that makes it a really good skill building project. For something to be a really good skill building project, you need to make a lot of them, and this is a really great excuse to make a lot of them. So I'm going to talk here about the decoys that I'm going to carve through this series, about how I came to the design, but the main thing I want to do with this first video is talk about reference material and the importance of reference material. If you want to build a skill, if you want to do good work, you must have good reference material, and you must have a substantial quantity of it, okay? You're not going to really develop a skill well buying one book. Okay? Buy one book to get yourself started, but you need to work on building a good collection of reference. Okay. So, where would you start with something like this? And I split my reference material into a couple of categories. My recommendation on where to start with this are direct pattern books. Okay, that's what this pile is to my right. Some of these are pattern books with full-size patterns. Some of these are pattern books with reduced patterns that you need to blow up on a grid system, like here. We'll talk about that in a bit. But you need to have some actual patterns with actual measurements. Now, none of the decoys that I make really come from one of these pattern books. Okay. My mallard head is actually out of a pattern book. Well, one of my mallard heads, plural, I should say, is that directly out of a pattern book. Just, I liked it. I did modify it, though. It's my variation on something. But the usefulness of these pattern books is you can start to ground yourself in whatever skill you're working on, okay? I'm talking, this duck decoys are just an example. But if you want to learn to flint knap, go get a bunch of books on historic artifacts and root yourself in the history of that craft. If you want to get into furniture, get yourself a bunch of books on furniture styles that you're interested in and root yourself in the diversity of that craft. And what pattern books will do, that have scale drawings or full-size drawings, is they will give you a sense of sizing, scale, and proportion that other books won't. Okay? So this is half of getting started. The other half of getting started is seeing the diversity of how have humans across multiple cultures and multiple regions. Now, cultures and regions is somewhat reduced with duck decoys because this is really about the only true art form which originated in America and has no other expression. It's one of the very few, actually, okay? This is one. The other one that I can think of is porcupine quill embroidery is pretty much distinctly North American. Some people will say scrimshaw, but scrimshaw is really just a regional variant of a worldwide art. I know I'm going to get comments for saying that, but it's true, and I can support that statement. But if you look at Europe and you want to look at European decoys, in modern times there are, in French and Germany, there are some true decoy making traditions in the sense of a carved floating sculpture. But in most of Europe, a decoy was a pond which was shaped in such a way that it had little patches of water that were easy to string nets across. So the pond was the decoy that attracted the ducks, and then they would use live domestic birds called calls. You could still buy their band and breeds called call ducks, which would then be put in a cage on the shore of the pond, and the pond and the living ducks were what drew in the ducks that they would then push into nets for boats. Making a wooden decoy goes back thousands of years in North America. So this is a true North American art form, and it is indigenous North American, okay? It is really, the modern decoy is a European appropriation of an indigenous Native American art form that doesn't really occur anywhere else in the world, at least not in the same way. So geography is reduced. But if you're talking about furniture, go get books on world furniture, okay? That's where these come in. These are all just regional books on, this one's New England, this one's a little more general. The Art of the Decoy, a little bit more general. This one is continent-wide. Decoys of the Atlantic Flyway. Traditions in Wood this one is specifically in Canada. I have one for Louisiana. Right, get these regional books so that you can ground yourself in the overall diversity of what's going on. This helps find your style. Okay, you can pick and choose from these local styles and make your own style of decoy, which I very much encourage you to do. Don't just be a slave to other people's patterns, okay? But do buy other people's patterns, because seeing a picture in a book like this doesn't give you the proportions in a way that a direct pattern book will. So these are synergistic. You need both. And then the third thing you need to do to translate it into an effective carving is you need, I should say also magazines. Collectors' magazines are a good one. Decoy magazine is a very good one. They have, their website is well indexed, and they sell back issues. So once you get this stack of books and you've zeroed in on a regional variant, now you can go to sources like this and really find individual carvers that have been featured in articles and get more detail on those things. Okay? And then the third thing is life studies, right? The critter that you're going to carve in its environment, swimming on the water, actual photographs of live birds or live animals or live people if you're getting into carving humans or the human figure. You need those life studies in order to take what you've learned from these two piles and translate it to an effective carving. Okay? So you must have reference material. Now that's the form in books. But books are flat two-dimensional images. So the fourth category of reference material that I would say is essential for learning something in a new area are your three-dimensional expressions of that. Okay? Now, all collectors markets have a category which is just crazy stupid in price. I'm not saying you need to go there. Okay? I would recommend you don't go there. The most expensive thing on the table is this particular duck, which I bought at a local antique shop. It was carved in Ontario, and I gave 60-something bucks for this. Okay? This is the most expensive single object. Okay? So even in categories where you have big collectors markets, you can find deals at yard sales and antique shops and get good at scrounging. You can also spend stupid sums, right? So this book and this book are 2 of 3 in a series. And I recently saw on Facebook somebody was proud of their purchase for $200 for this pair of books. I think I gave $15 for each. Right? Got them on used booksellers online. So get good at scrounging, and you can get a nice collection of reference material for a reasonable price. Now, The other reason I can get stuff at a reasonable price is because I'm not collecting to show off to others. I'm collecting to learn. Those are different things. So every decoy here has something about it that I wanted to learn, something specific that I wanted to learn, okay? So this bluebill, this swing weight allows the duck a lot of motion up and down but stabilizes it side to side. So I bought this pair of decoys mostly to study how it was weighted, because this is something I want in an actual effective decoy. I also like them, right? I thought they were cool. This Canvasback I bought because I liked how the bill was carved. Also, I like this one because it shows tool marks. You'll see in all of my work, I like to have some preserved region on everything that shows how it was made. Okay. Here you can see on this head the rasp work is intact. They gave it a little bit of, it probably won't pick up in the camera, even zoomed in, but they gave a little bit of a light sanding so that it's reasonably smooth and paintable, but they left the rasp work. So I can see how this was made. It has information, right? So that, in my mind, the fact that it's imperfect elevates it above the high detailed stuff that the more money than brains collectors are chasing, right? I want the stuff that shows the imperfections. Same thing on this one. This is a local New York carved decoy. This one is out of cedar. That one is cork and wood. That one is probably cedar, or from where it was made, probably cedar. I can't tell because it's all painted. But this one right here, the whole head is repaired with a Ducharme. So the maker of this decoy took imperfect wood and made this beautiful carving out of it. Also, it's a very graceful carving sculpturally. This is not an antique. This is a modern decoy. There was a set of these that, like in the 90s, were mass-produced in Taiwan, Thailand, somewhere Southeast Asia, and imported as decor items in large numbers. But I really liked how they did the tail on this pintail. A hunting decoy needs to be extremely robust, and pintails have a very fragile tail. And I just thought that tail design was a beautiful compromise of, graceful enough that it's identified as a pintail, but robust enough that it would hold up thrown in a bag in a boat, right? These little miniatures I bought to study the paint pattern. This is a hen mallard and a hen canvasback. So I got these two little guys. These are both eBay purchases. Not much money at all. And they are here to teach me about painting ducks. Right? So these I bought for the paint. These I bought for some structural aspect. Okay. You can see this canvasback has a low tail. This is a high tail, but most of the diving ducks, they sit with their tail level to the water or underneath it. So the tail is not a prominent feature. Some are made with high tails. That's kind of an exception. The tail is not a static object. But in general, your diving ducks tend to sit with a low tail. Your dabblers, geese, swans, and some sea ducks tend to sit with their tail high in their at-rest position. So most of your dabblers and geese are carved with a high tail. Most of your divers are carved with a low tail. And in the Midwest, you have a carving style of divers that has no tail whatsoever, which I like because that's this much less weight, and it's that much shorter a decoy to get more in a small boat. And it's not an important part of the duck, so why bother with it, right? So you have the deleted tail. I ended up incorporating that in my own designs. So from all of this, you go and you need to start showing your own stuff. Now here we actually have something that I can show you because these are my drawings. These are all made from photographs of live birds that are scaled to the same height, width, length that I find in the pattern books. So I'm combining the life studies and the dimensionality of the patterns into my own original head designs. Okay? You should do this. Another example of that is I drew This is a common eider decoy. This is based on a famous set of 12 common eiders from Deer Island, Maine, that are in the category of, like, people spend stupid amounts of money on them because there's only 12, so, like, the people who are in it to show off how much money they can spend trade these things like cards. But if you look, it's a high-tail design. So I took this, I traced it, and then I turned it into this inner tracing, which became the pattern for my mallard. This is one of my carvings. Okay? So this head is modified from a pattern book, and this body is based on the style of these Deer Island, Maine eiders. Okay? Now I have a second style of mallard that I'm still working up, which is a combination of the Deer Island, Maine eiders and the mallards that are carved in Louisiana, in the Cajun country, in Louisiana, because that's one of the most graceful mallard designs that I've seen in any of this reference material. And I like it. So when I have the opportunity to have a piece of wood, you'll see in the next video where I get my wood, but some of these pieces of wood have a big, long, splayed up tail. And those, I'm taking this and adding that extra little bit of a stylistic feature to emulate some of what I see from Louisiana decoys. So we have books, life studies, photos, actual three-dimensional carvings, and I end up with a mallard which was inspired by a sea duck that is my own design. This is the design process. This is what you want to be doing as you advance in it. Now, my first carvings of any decoy were directly out of a pattern book, and it didn't fit my style. But I did make a couple directly out of a pattern book to learn from the experience of doing that, and that's the fifth aspect, is your own experience and muscle memory, your own tactile experience. Okay? Once all those 5 things are in place, stop using the patterns directly and go to making your own patterns. Okay? Now, one of the things I want to do with this channel is release some of, I'll put this guy down, some of my own patterns, and I'm still looking for the right platform to do that on. I'm hoping that I can make this work through Patreon, to make a pattern repository on that website, but I don't want to announce it yet because I'm still trying to figure out how it works, and I might switch platforms. But I do want to make a lot of these patterns that I've drawn myself, as well as tracings and detailed descriptions of some of these historic decoys that I've accumulated, and make those things available to you, the community of Old Ways Rising Farm YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that, and at the point that I have that figured out, I will put information in the description box of some of these earlier videos where it wasn't set up yet. So stay tuned to that as the channel grows and develops. But that is in my plans. So we go from reference material to sketchbook, then we go from sketchbook to designs. I want to talk more specifically about, let me set some of these guys down, about, I'll leave him up, the actual decoys that we're going to be carving together in this series, and they are canvasbacks. So here's one that's unpainted. Here is a painted female. Here is a painted male. Now you can see what I mean by this, that this has the tail just completely removed. This historic example has a low tail. My example is stub-nosed. It's tailless. This is a variety. This is a style that comes out of the Midwest, right? So you see a lot of these humpback stub-nosed decoys in the Midwest. It's hard to find a piece of wood that you get a true strong humpback on the canvasbacks, but this little bluebill, you can really see this humpback come out, right? The eyes are just something I figured out. I didn't want, when I'm making these things, I really like to lean into the idea that this is a folk art. right? So I didn't want to go and get fancy taxidermy eyes. So these are glass beads that I drill a recess for the bead, and then cut off a finishing nail, round over the end of the finishing nail a little bit, and put it in with that. So the eyes are glass beads. I get my glass beads opportunistically at powwows and historic reenactment events, and Crazy Crow is a company that sells them consistently. If it's the middle of winter and I run out, that's where I'll go to mail order them. By the way, these videos are unsponsored, so my opinions are, in fact, my own opinions. But yeah, you can really see the humpback in these bluebills. It's not quite as pronounced in the canvasback. These canvasbacks were inspired largely by a style of decoy that comes out of Herons Lake, Minnesota, and Delta Marsh in Canada. The most famous carver is Dunkan Ducharme, but there are a lot of carvers that carved in this general style. It's not just his decoys. They are fairly close to the oldest Native American decoys. Are fairly close in shape to this. And Dunkan Ducharme was a Native American person. So, he was, actually I think he was Métis. I could be partially wrong on that, but I think he was Métis. So they're inspired by that, but they have my glass eyes. I carve the beaks different than he did. I carve the beaks like this one. Well, that one modified. And the curve in the bottom is a little bit more pronounced because I want them to ride on the water with more motion vertically than horizontally. So I want them as wide as possible in this dimension and as curvy as possible in this dimension to get that. And that, again, is a design feature which comes off of those Deer Island eiders again. So I'm pulling in aspects of that. And then the painting is comb painting, where I have two tones, a darker and a darker underneath, a lighter on top, and then you comb through it to make these vermiculations. You can see it a little bit stronger in that one, and you can see it very strongly in the mallard, if I get him back up again. And I do as much of my painting as possible comb painting because I like how it looks on the decoys. It is traditional, it is in keeping with leaning into the folk art aspects of this. And it's part of my culture, being Pennsylvania Dutch, right? This is, a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch furniture had grain painting, wood grain painting on it. From a lot of furniture from southeastern Pennsylvania is done that way. And the Moravian paste paper is done with these same techniques, right? So that's part of my personal cultural heritage that I like to lean into with these. Where else I modified this from the original Delta Marsh version is you're not going to see it so well in the painted ones, but I mortise my heads on. And on most of these, I will occasionally use a straight mortise. On most of these, this is a dovetail. This is a sliding dovetail that attaches the head. And then it's got a hole drilled in the bottom for a dowel. Okay, so it's a dovetail and doweled. That's a very, very secure connection because these things get grabbed by the head and flipped around. So that's got to be, that beak is your handle, so that's got to be strong. Okay, and this is the absolute strongest way that you can conceive of putting a decoy together. The one we're going to do is a straight mortise. Most of mine are a dovetail, but this is completely out of keeping with the originals and in keeping with Maine style decoys. So again, the bottom profile and the head attachment is Maine style, and then the head style and the body style, well, the head style is Delta Marsh, the body style is Midwest. So we have a composite of multiple styles. Okay? But you've got to get reference material and you've got to practice, then you do this, right? But I do encourage everybody watching this to try to come up with your style, right? I am going to do everything I can to give you all the tools that you need to carve this decoy, but take those tools and figure out what your decoy is, okay? And then take the skills you learned making this decoy, right? Again, I changed the straight mortise of the Maine style into a sliding dovetail, because these are very important in Pennsylvania Dutch furniture. So it was another location where I'm leaning into my own cultural heritage. It's the strongest possible joint. And sliding dovetails. are a component of a lot of other projects that I want to work on in the future. So this is a good opportunity to practice. And the making of this joint is then a transferable skill for many, many other projects. Okay? So we're going to embark on this decoy carving journey together in the next few videos, and I hope that you will come along with it. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like it so that other people can see it, and if you're enjoying the channel, I would be very grateful if you subscribed. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.